Hello and welcome to the viewers of this video. This is the Orange Fan here, bringing you another entry for the episode Recap and Thoughts category. This video will be dedicated to the A segment of episode 46 of Codename Kids Next Door, Operation Chocolate. We begin this segment at the Lincoln home, where we see number 5 has just finished having dinner with her parents and her older sister Cree. Dr. Lincoln and Mrs. Lincoln both comment about how delicious this particular dinner was, and they're both glad that it looks like their daughters are getting along with each other again. In truth, we see that number 5 and Cree are both pointing laser ray guns towards each other, although they're doing so under the table. Dr. Lincoln suggests that they have some hot chocolate with marshmallows to finish off this meal, and number 5 volunteers to go get the marshmallows. She also manages to avoid being hit by Cree's laser ray gun. The Lincoln parents seem to be unaware of this attack. So number 5 goes into the garage, and it looks like she's going to open up the refrigerator in the garage, but in reality, number 5 activates a space vehicle that this refrigerator is a part of. Number 5 uses this space vehicle to travel to the planet Mars, and we see that there are marshmallows growing on the planet. Using a combination of the laser ray gun and the space vehicle, number 5 is able to gather up some of the marshmallows from Mars. She also comments something along the lines about how Marsmallows taste better when they're fresh. Soon enough, number 5 returns to Earth, and she's placed some of the marshmallows into a container when she walks into the kitchen. But when she enters the kitchen, she notices that it's covered in bitter-tasting chocolate. Number 5 wonders if maybe one of her family members accidentally spilt some of the chocolate. But when she enters the dining room, she finds her parents and Cree are trapped or encased within chocolate. She also sees a message written in chocolate on the wall. This message reads, "I have returned." Number 5 immediately realizes who the invader was, and she rushes off to the Sector V treehouse. Along the way, we also see that there's a chocolate trail from the Lincoln home to the Sector V treehouse. We also see several other civilians are trapped or encased within chocolate. The Sector V treehouse itself is now covered in chocolate, and inside, number 2 and number 4 are trapped or encased in chocolate by the invader. Number 3 arrives with Hippie Hop, but both number 3 and Hippie Hop are also trapped or encased within chocolate by the invader. Number 1 attempts to fight off the invader to the best of his abilities, but unfortunately the invader is able to overpower number 1, and eventually we see that the invader is Heinrich Von Marzipan, but now he's living chocolate. Heinrich grabs number 1 and demands to know where Abigail Lincoln is, and while he's grabbing number 1, we see that number 1 is slowly being trapped or encased within chocolate. Eventually, either only number 1's head, or at least his face, is all that isn't trapped or encased in chocolate, and number 1 inquires Heinrich about why he's searching for number 5. Heinrich says something along the lines about how he wants to repay number 5 for the favor she did to him. But soon enough, number 5 arrives, and she demands that Heinrich let number 1 go. Heinrich is more than happy to do so, saying that number 5 is the one that he's looking for anyway. So Heinrich tosses number 1 aside, and he faces number 5. Number 5 inquires Heinrich about what happened to him, how did he become living chocolate, and Heinrich blames number 5 for this. He recalls the events from Operation Rabbit, where he tried to turn real bunnies into chocolate bunnies by using the chocolate volcano within the jungle gym on the playground of Gulliger Elementary School. At the end of that segment, Heinrich fell into the chocolate volcano, and he ended up fusing with the chocolate lava, which is how he became Living Chocolate. When he escaped the chocolate volcano, Heinrich found out that anything he touched turned to chocolate, and he actually was quite happy about this. He even admits to number 5 that he thanked her for what happened to him. But after a few weeks, Heinrich began to desire a cheeseburger. So when he went to go get a cheeseburger, he found out that the cheeseburger turned to chocolate just before he could eat it. And Heinrich quickly realized that all food and beverage he touched would turn to chocolate, just like everything else. And this is when Heinrich became angry and why he went to search for number 5. But then Heinrich begins to break down and admits to number 5 that he's only a shell of his former self, or he says something along those lines anyway. Number 5 shows sympathy towards Heinrich's predicament, and she suggests that Heinrich turn himself into the kids next door, thinking that the kids next door scientists could find a way to reverse Heinrich's transformation into Living Chocolate. Heinrich does consider that might work, but then he quickly decides it might not work either, and then he grows angry, instead saying that number 5 should be more concerned about avoiding being trapped in or encased within chocolate. So Heinrich proceeds to launch some chocolate towards number 5, but number 5 uses her marshmallow gun to launch a marshmallow towards the chocolate, and this manages to neutralize the chocolate. Heinrich compliments number 5 for knowing that marshmallows can neutralize chocolate, but Heinrich comments that number 5 only has a limited supply of marshmallows, while Heinrich has infinite chocolate at his disposal. Soon enough, Heinrich is able to turn the marshmallow gun into chocolate, and number 5 is forced to retreat. She activates a jetpack backpack, but Heinrich chases after number 5 by creating a trail of chocolate, similar to the ice trail that Iceman from X-Men can create. So Heinrich is chasing after number 5, and he manages to turn number 5's jetpack backpack into chocolate. So number 5 has to go on foot to escape from Heinrich. Eventually, number 5 enters her space vehicle, and she heads off to space. But Heinrich was able to sneak on board before number 5 launched into space. And Heinrich is preparing to, Heinrich manages to grab number 5's leg, and number 5 is starting to be trapped or encased within chocolate. But number 5 then admits that she was merely stalling Heinrich, and she was trying to reach the sun or get closer to the sun. The closer they get to the sun's rays are able to start to turn Heinrich into a melted state. Or yes, Heinrich is unable to maintain his form when he's closer to the sun. Yes, Heinrich can't maintain his form while he's closer to the sun, so he's now in a melted state. But Heinrich still insists that he's all powerful and that he will destroy number 5. But number 5 says that Heinrich will not succeed. And because of the sun's rays, number 5 is able to break free from the chocolate encasing or the chocolate trap that Heinrich was able to place on her so far. So she breaks free, and number 5 activates a button which causes the rest of the marshmallows that she collected earlier to fall on top of Heinrich. So with the sun's rays and the marshmallows, Heinrich is completely neutralized. And number 5 makes a comment about a joke that number 2 would be proud of. Her joke is saying that Heinrich can't hurt anyone any more instead of any more. And then afterwards, we see a few scenes playing out, but we also hear number 5 narrating. According to number 5's narration, and while these scenes are playing out, number 5 explains that she contacted other Kids Next Door operatives to help free her family members and her fellow teammates, her fellow Sector V operatives, from being trapped to free them from their chocolate imprisonment. Yes, she contacted other Kids Next Door operatives to free her family members and her teammates that were trapped in chocolate, but she does comment about how Cree mysteriously disappeared. She also narrates, the narration continues with number 5 explaining that she brought Heinrich's melted form to the Kids Next Door Arctic base, and the scientists there were able to reverse the transformation of Heinrich, so Heinrich is no longer living chocolate anymore. Heinrich is now being held at the Arctic. Yes, Heinrich is now being held at the Arctic prison base of the Kids Next Door. And the narration ends with number 5 going to visit Heinrich. Heinrich simply thinks that number 5 has come to gloat about her victory, but in truth, number 5 simply wanted to bring something to Heinrich. And she tells Heinrich that he should call her when he's not feeling so bitter anymore. After number 5 leaves, Heinrich pulls out whatever is inside the bag that she left for him, and we see that it's a cheeseburger. Heinrich is happy about this, and he thanks number 5, and he proceeds to eat the cheeseburger, commenting about how delicious it is. But then Heinrich, Heinrich, though, becomes infuriated when he finds out that there are pickles in the cheeseburger. Yes, so the segment ends with Heinrich being upset that there were pickles in the cheeseburger. So there you go. This was the next entry in the Heinrich Von Marzipan saga, and it's the second one within Season 4. I did comment before in previous Recap and Thoughts videos that Heinrich Von Marzipan had 2 appearances in Season 4. And yes, this is his second Season 4 appearance, and it's also a sequel to the first Season 4 Heinrich entry, which was Operation Rabbit. So yes, after the events of Operation Rabbit, Heinrich has now become living chocolate, and he has the ability to turn whatever he touches into chocolate. At first he enjoyed it, but then he grew to dislike this ability when he found out that even other food would turn into chocolate, and other beverages for that matter. And this is a reference to the Midas touch. That story about the Midas touch, the story about King Midas who wished that everything he touched would turn to gold. And at first he did like this wish, but eventually the wish proved to be an inconvenience for him and he regretted it. So instead of the Midas touch, it would be, I guess, the chocolate touch, or, well, Midas, it was named after the king, so maybe the Heinrich touch. I don't know. You get the idea, though. You know what I'm talking about. But besides Heinrich appearing, there's also some other notable details for this segment. The first notable detail is that this segment marks the introduction of Mrs. Lincoln, number 5 and Cree's mother, and Dr. Lincoln's wife. And yes, Mrs. Lincoln speaks with a French accent, so this indicates that number 5 and Cree have some French ancestry. So that was, it was nice to see Mrs. Lincoln appear, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe Mrs. Lincoln has at least one other appearance in the series, so we'll be sure to bring that up once we eventually reach that particular entry. Now, the other important detail about this segment is it also reveals more about the Kids Next Door Arctic base. Back in Operation Training, number 60 did comment about how the Arctic base was the second most important base within the Kids Next Door organization, the moon base being the most important. And we do get to see more about, this segment helps to show why the Arctic base is the second most important within the organization. The Arctic base is not just where the cadets are trained, but it also acts as a prison. Yes, there's a prison within the Arctic base where they send, where the rogues gallery of the Kids Next Door go. And this kind of goes along with what I mentioned back in Operation Lockdown from Season 3. Or yes, in the recap and thoughts video for Operation Lockdown, I did comment how Count Spankulot being in prison would be a later example of early installment weirdness within the series. And this segment shows why, because while Count Spankulot was in a regular prison in Season 2 and Season 3, in Season 4, we now see that the kids next door have a specialized prison for the members of their rogues gallery. And yes, we'll be seeing the Arctic prison, or yes, we'll be seeing the Arctic base's prison more in later entries of the series. But yes, this seems to be the norm. Yes, whether it's kids, teens, or adults, the Arctic prison base becomes the prison for the kids next door's rogues gallery members. Now, some other details are we do get a few quick appearances here or there. Yes, some of the kids next door operatives that free Number 5's family and her teammates from their chocolate imprisonment are Number 23 from Operation Slumber, one of the Number 44 twins, and Sonia, who was one of the cadets that graduated to a Kids Next Door operative. She was a cadet alongside Lee and Tommy during Operation Training, and she graduated into a full-time Kids Next Door operative in Operation Graduates. She doesn't have any dialogue, though, but yes, Sonia and Lee, for that matter, will have more appearances later on in the series. So we'll be sure to talk about those entries once we reach the recap and thoughts videos for those particular entries. Now, the other big detail it's a small detail, yes, but something I think is still important all the same, is when Number 5 goes to visit Heinrich, towards the end of the segment, we do see that the Toilinator is in the prison and he's being visited by a couple that are also toilet themed, like the Toilinator. Now, I did mention in the recap and thoughts video for Operation Flush that there was a comics issue that actually revealed that the Toilinator is the long-lost brother of Sydney Beatles, Number 4's dad, which would make the Toilinator Number 4's uncle. But yes, the Toilinator is also, the Toilinator's civilian name, though, is Lou Pottingsworth III, rather than having the last name Beatles. Now, I did suspect that Lou might have been adopted by a family with the Pottingsworth last name. So I'm guessing that the couple that visited the Toilinator at the end of this segment were the Pottingsworths. Or yes, the Pottingsworth. I believe that the Pottingsworth couple were the couple that visited Lou, aka Toilinator, at the end of this segment. Now, it's also possible that this segment might have been made before Operation History, the comics issue, was thought up. So that could also be a possible explanation for that inconsistency. But yes, that's some speculation to help explain what might seem a bit confusing in light of the Toilinator's true identity. So otherwise, I believe that's about it. So Heinrich will return in Season 5. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Heinrich has only one appearance in Season 5 and one appearance in Season 6. But we will be sure to talk more about Heinrich's future appearances when we cover the recap and thoughts videos for those entries. And like I said, I did like how we got to meet Mrs. Lincoln, and I did like seeing some of the other non-Sector V operatives of the Kids Next Door make cameo appearances. I also liked learning more about the Arctic base and why it's the second most important in the organization. Overall, I actually think Operation C.H.O.C.O.L.A.T.E is my favorite entry in the Heinrich Von Marzipan saga. So otherwise, yes, I believe that's about it. I did enjoy this segment quite a bit. Oh, and I did like the hint towards the Number 2 and Number 5 pairing when Number 5 made a joke that Number 2 would be proud of. But otherwise, yes, I believe that's about it. So as of this video, we've now discussed the A segment of episode 46 of Codename Kids Next Door, on this channel. Take care, and until next time.